You got the promotion, you got the raise, and somehow you're still not getting ahead. In fact, many people are making more money than ever while building less wealth than they should. Why? Because the middle class is full of financial traps that feel completely normal, not because you're irresponsible, not because you made some catastrophic financial mistake, but because when something feels normal, you never question it. You just keep doing it year after year, while the wealth you should be building quietly evaporates in the background. And here's what makes this dangerous. Most people don't have an income problem. They have a normal problem, and normal is surprisingly expensive. Most people never realize how expensive it is until decades have already passed. Most people think they're one promotion away from finally getting ahead, but for a surprising number of people, a promotion doesn't create wealth. It simply gives them the ability to spend more. In fact, a person earning $70,000 a year who consistently invests 20% of their income can easily end up wealthier than someone earning $150,000 who spends everything they make. Read that again. The higher earner made more money. The disciplined saver built more wealth. That's why some of these traps don't just cost you a few $1,000s. Over a lifetime, they can cost you hundreds of thousands, even more than $1 million in lost wealth and investment growth. Not because of one catastrophic mistake, because of dozens of perfectly normal decisions that quietly point your money in the wrong direction. Today, we're breaking down 7 middle-class traps that keep hardworking, educated, responsible people stuck on a financial treadmill for decades. And I want to be clear about something before we start. This is not about judging your choices. This is about making them visible, because you genuinely cannot escape a trap you cannot see. And stay with me until the end, because the final trap is the reason intelligent people fall into all 6 previous traps. Fix that one, and most of the others become dramatically easier to avoid. Let's start seeing them, and what's fascinating is that the first trap is usually the one people celebrate. They think it's proof they're winning financially, when in reality, it's often the moment they stop building wealth and start financing a more expensive version of their old life. Trap number 1, the first normal trap, lifestyle inflation. Every raise gets spent instead of invested. Imagine this. It's Friday afternoon. Your boss calls you into the office. You get a raise. By Monday, you've already started browsing apartments you couldn't justify a week ago. Maybe you've upgraded your vacation plans. Maybe you've convinced yourself your old car suddenly feels outdated. Nothing dramatic, nothing irresponsible, just small upgrades that feel completely reasonable. And that's exactly why this trap is so effective. Here's the thing about a raise that nobody prepares you for. It doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a reward. You worked hard, you earned more. So naturally, you start living a little better. You stop hunting for deals. You order the nicer meal. You upgrade a few things around your life, and none of it feels like overspending. It feels like arriving. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is this. Your lifestyle expands almost perfectly to match your income. Your savings rate stays the same. Sometimes it even falls. This isn't a rare problem. A significant percentage of people earning 6 figures still report living paycheck to paycheck. And when you look closer, it starts making sense. The apartment gets nicer. The car gets newer. The restaurants improve. The vacations become more frequent. The wardrobe gets refreshed. Each upgrade seems modest. Together, they quietly consume every dollar of the raise before it ever has a chance to become wealth. And here's what's fascinating. Many people think the car payment is the biggest financial trap they face. What makes it so dangerous is that it often disguises itself as success. Here's how you break lifestyle inflation. The next time your income increases, pretend half the raise never happened. Automate it into investments immediately, before your spending habits have time to notice it's there. Even directing 50% of every future raise toward wealth building can completely change your financial future, because the first half of every raise buys comfort. The second half buys freedom. Trap number 2, the car payment trap. A wealth killer that feels completely normal. Picture 2 neighbors, same age, same income, same street. One drives a brand new truck with $1,000 monthly payment. The other drives a reliable used vehicle that's already paid off. From the outside, one looks wealthier. 30 years later, the other one actually is. And that's the trap. The average new car payment has climbed to levels that would have sounded absurd a generation ago. Hundreds of dollars every month, for years, sometimes more than $1,000, for something that's losing value every single day. The moment you drive a new vehicle off the lot, depreciation begins. And because the payments feel too high, loan terms get stretched longer and longer. 6 years, 7 years, sometimes even more, which creates a second trap inside the first. By the time you're ready for another vehicle, there's a good chance you still owe money on the current current one. Now you're rolling negative equity into the next loan. The payments continue, the debt continues, and ownership never really arrives. You're not buying cars anymore. You're subscribing to them. The reason this trap is so powerful is that nobody around you treats it like a problem. It's normal. Every driveway looks the same. Every dealership says it's affordable. Every commercial frames it as success. But transportation is a utility. It gets you from one place to another. The moment it becomes a status symbol, it starts competing directly with your future wealth. And to be clear, this isn't an argument against owning a vehicle. For many people, a car isn't optional. It's how they get to work, pick up their kids, and live their daily lives. The trap isn't transportation. The trap is believing every increase in income should be matched by an increase in vehicle costs. Because the difference between driving a reliable vehicle and driving an expensive status symbol often has very little impact on your daily life, but a massive impact on your ability to build wealth. And surprisingly, the biggest wealth destroyer for many people isn't their vehicle. It's the tiny purchases they barely notice. Which brings us to trap number 3, convenience spending, food delivery, subscriptions, premium everything. This trap is particularly dangerous because it never feels expensive. Imagine someone asked you a simple question. Would you willingly spend $3,000 this year on delivery fees, service charges, subscription renewals, and convenience upgrades? Most people would immediately say no. Then they proceed to do exactly that, one small charge at a time. That's how the trap works. You have a long day at work. Cooking feels exhausting, so you order delivery. A few days later, you sign up for another streaming service because it's only a few dollars a month. Then there's cloud storage, a premium app, a membership you meant to cancel, a free trial that quietly became permanent. Each charge is tiny, almost invisible, but invisibility is exactly what makes it dangerous. Research consistently shows that people dramatically underestimate how much they're spending on subscriptions. Many people guess numbers that are less than half of their actual total, and that's before adding delivery services, convenience fees, premium upgrades, and recurring purchases scattered across dozens of transactions. Food delivery is the perfect example. A meal that would have cost $15 if you picked it up yourself suddenly becomes $25 or $30 by the time the app adds markups, fees, and a tip. The extra $10 doesn't feel significant, but repeat that 3 times a week, 52 weeks a year, for 10 years. Now you're talking about real money, money that could have been building wealth instead. And here's what's interesting. Most people assume convenience spending is just about saving time, but very often it's connected to something much deeper: status. The desire to signal success, which brings us to the next trap. Trap number 4, looking wealthy instead of being wealthy. Spending on visible status items almost immediately. The comparison instinct is deeply human. But here's the question. Would you rather look wealthy for strangers today, or actually become wealthy for yourself tomorrow? Because those goals are often pulling in opposite directions. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Imagine someone offered you a guaranteed return on your money every year for the next 30 years. Most people would take that deal immediately, yet many people unknowingly give away that same future growth because of the next trap. A trap that sounds logical, responsible even, but ends up costing people hundreds of thousands of dollars. Trap number 5, the "I'll save more when I earn more" mindset. This might be the most expensive sentence in personal finance. Not because it sounds irresponsible, because it sounds completely reasonable. Of course, you'll save more later, when you get the promotion, when your income increases, when life becomes less expensive, when things settle down, except life rarely works that way, because every future version of you has new reasons to wait, and while you're waiting, something incredibly valuable is disappearing: time. Imagine 2 people, both invest $500 per month, both earn the same investment returns. The only difference is when they start. The first person begins at 25, the second begins at 35. 10 years later, same contribution, same strategy, same amount invested every month. The difference by retirement can easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases well over $400,000. That's the cost of waiting. And here's what makes it painful. Most people don't realize they're making the decision. They're not actively rejecting investing, they're simply postponing it again and again and again until years have quietly disappeared. The human brain naturally prioritizes present needs over future ones. Retirement feels distant. The thing you want today feels immediate. So the future keeps losing. The solution isn't complicated. Start before you feel ready. Start smaller than you think matters. Automate it and let time do what time does best. Because the perfect moment to begin building wealth almost never arrives. The people who succeed financially usually start before they feel fully prepared. And speaking of emotional decisions that that feel completely justified. The next trap is one almost everyone falls into. Trap number 6, the reward cycle. Constantly spending to treat yourself. Picture this. It's Friday evening, you've had a brutal week. The boss was difficult, the commute was awful, the deadlines were relentless. You tell yourself something completely reasonable. I deserve this. And honestly, you probably do. The problem isn't that you want a reward. The problem is when spending money becomes your default reward system. Every stressful week becomes a shopping trip. Every accomplishment becomes a purchase. Every emotional low becomes an excuse to spend. Over time, the pattern becomes automatic. Stress leads to spending. Work leads to spending. Success leads to spending. The brain loves this cycle because purchases trigger genuine feelings of reward. There's a real psychological payoff. The problem is that the feeling fades quickly. The financial cost doesn't. And one expensive dinner isn't the issue. One weekend getaway isn't the issue. One online purchase isn't the issue. The issue is repeating the pattern hundreds of times across decades. Because eventually you create a system where every difficult week at work quietly converts into less wealth at home. A better question to ask is this: if spending money disappeared tomorrow, how would you reward yourself? How would you celebrate? How would you decompress? The more answers you have to that question, the less power this trap has over you. And that brings us to the final trap, the one that's secretly connected to every single thing we've talked about so far. Up to this point, we've been talking about symptoms. The final trap is the root cause. Trap number 7, no wealth building system. The biggest trap of all. Let's step back for a second. Lifestyle inflation, car payments, convenience spending, status purchases, delayed investing, reward cycles. What do they all have in common? They're all exit doors, ways money leaves your life, and everyone of them feels normal. Everyone feels reasonable. Everyone has a justification. But here's the real question: where is the entrance? What system exists to capture money before life spends it? For most households, there isn't one. Money comes in, bills get paid, life happens, and whatever remains gets saved. Maybe, if anything is left. The problem is that the traps always get there first. Without a system, spending becomes automatic, saving becomes optional, and optional things rarely happen consistently. The people who build wealth don't necessarily have more discipline. They usually have better systems. A percentage of every paycheck moves automatically. Investments happen automatically. Savings happen automatically. The decision was made once, not every month. That's the magic. Because motivation comes and goes. Willpower gets tired. Life gets busy. But automation doesn't care. It keeps working whether you're inspired or exhausted, whether you're focused or distracted, whether you're having a great month or a terrible one. And that's why this final trap matters so much, because fixing it weakens every other trap. When money has a destination, the moment it arrives, there's less available for lifestyle inflation, less available for impulse spending, less available for unconscious financial drift. The system becomes stronger than the temptation, and that's exactly what wealth building really is. Not perfect decisions, better systems. Now here's the thing that ties all 7 traps together. Not one of them requires you to be irresponsible. Every single one requires you to be completely normal. The car payment is normal. The food delivery habit is normal. Wanting to look successful is normal. Waiting to save more later is normal. Rewarding yourself after a hard week is normal. Having no wealth building system is normal. And that's the problem. Normal is the trap. The people who achieve financial freedom aren't usually doing anything extraordinary. They're simply refusing to do some of the ordinary things everyone else accepts. They drove the car that didn't impress anyone. They invested before they felt ready. They built systems before lifestyle claimed their income. They chose actual wealth over the appearance of wealth. At 35, those choices may have looked boring. At 55, they created options. And options are what wealth is really about. The ability to choose. Choose your work. Choose your time. Choose your lifestyle. Choose your future. Not because someone gave you permission, because you built it. And here's the part most people miss. Most people watching this video won't change anything. They'll recognize themselves in one of these traps, they'll nod along, and then they'll go right back to the same habits tomorrow. A smaller group will make one change, just one. They'll cancel a subscription, automate an investment, delay a purchase, drive the car they already own for another year, start building a system. 5 years from now, those two groups will be living very different lives. Not because one group got lucky, because one group decided to stop doing what was normal. So here's what I want you to do. Out of the 7 traps we covered today, which one hit closest to home? Was it lifestyle inflation, the car payment, convenience spending, status purchases, waiting to invest, the reward cycle, or having no system at all? Comment the number below. I'm genuinely curious which one resonates most with people watching this. And if this video opened your eyes to one of these traps, subscribe. Because once you start seeing them, you start seeing them everywhere. You start noticing how often normal spending gets mistaken for smart spending, how often looking wealthy gets confused with being wealthy, and how many financial decisions people make simply because everyone else is doing the same thing. Because financial freedom doesn't happen all at once. It happens one decision at a time, and today is a pretty good day to start making different ones.